Well, I do talk about that in red flags
Mm,
and toxic spirituality because I think most people are good and doing the best they can with where they're at. That's a human nature, but where we're at can still be harmful. So there can be a lot of unintentioned harm that's still harmful, but there is a small percentage of the population that's actually dangerous or manipulative
mm,
personality types, and spiritual communities are not immune to that.
mm,
And so that is, I do talk about that in one of the chapters too, of it's important to be able to recognize the characteristics of when you might be dealing with someone
mm,
with these kind of levels of emotional immaturity, lack of ability to self-regulate, lack
mm,
of ability to reflect,
mm,
whether that's high degrees of emotional immaturity or if we're getting into personality pathology.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. Turn around.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I'm really looking forward to this podcast because I've got Katie Turner with me. She's a psychologist and she has written a fantastic book called Fck Toxic Spirituality. Now, that name alone just made me intrigued and I wanted to know more. But then, furthermore, she is actually a woman who has explored our intuition in depth. And it is so beautiful to actually take a closer look at spirituality, intuition, us seeking this enlightenment. And often enough, we end up on quite interesting paths on that journey, and paths that can sometimes be rather self-harming and destructive. So let's actually have a closer look at how do we achieve the best version of ourselves, and who better to talk to than Katie. Welcome to my show.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm excited.
How did you come about the idea to write that book?
The book was a long time bubbling. It was recent years I was getting more and more of the intuitive nudge to make the information I have
Yes.
accumulated through all the decades available for people beyond just one-on-one therapy. And the book really stood out because I ran into a lot of things in my own awakening journey of how to navigate this, red flags to look out for. And there were common themes that I just kept seeing over and over and over again in my practice that I would just normalize and work with people one on one with. And a common theme I kept saying was like, well, how would you know? There's no like guidebook, there's no roadmap when you're trying to figure out this intuitive spiritual awakening. When you Google that, I say I call it the wild west of answers that you can kind of get online. And it's hard for people to know like what to look for, what not to look for. So there was these common themes that just kept coming up so many times that really laid the foundation of the book was to speak to those themes.
Ah, it's so wise, isn't it? Because there is so much bullshit out there. On the one hand, we have got all some wonderful nuggets of information out there, and I think it has never been easier to access information than for us right now in 2025. The problem is that much of this information is being shouted out by people with their own agenda.
Hmm.
Sometimes they themselves are misled and talk about extreme versions of gurus and cults.
Yeah.
Other people want to simply make money. So
Hmm.
nowadays, I always ask myself two questions. Whenever someone or any institution or government tells me something, I ask, is that true? And secondly, I ask, why are they telling me that? And once you
Hmm.
go through life like that, you sound like one of these tinfoil warriors, but ultimately it is quite right. So I love what you're saying. Having said that, let's go a bit more into detail. I mean, the spirituality. How do you define spirituality? What is that for you?
Well, I think it can be important to separate that right off the bat. So I'm glad you asked that because
Mm,
many people will think that means religion or being religious, and it's a separate dimension. So it's really your own personal connection with whatever you want to call it, that's something greater than yourself. For some people, that's like God, it might be universe, spirit, nature,
mm,
higher self.
mm.
For me in my practice, I don't think it really matters what it is because it's so individual to people and what
Mm.
language fits for them, what their past
Exactly.
experience is with like what's like a no does
Mm,
not resonate for them anymore versus what feels right.
mm,
But it really is a personal experiential relationship where we can have questions and receive kind of guidance back or comfort or signs or
Yes.
the connection with kind of an unseen force, hard to describe force that's there with
Beautiful.
us, loves us.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love your definition. That's exactly what I feel about. And I think most of us can realize, even if we do not believe in a particular God, or even if we're very skeptical, like me, that there is something bigger out there. Not one dude with a long white robe and a big beard, but something. And I think if we all go from that premise, if we work from that premise, I think that's fair to say without actually upsetting anyone out there. We all believe in good and bad. A few exceptions. I mean, 1 in 100 are psychopaths and sociopaths,
Mhm.
which really struggle with emotions and really struggle with them. How do they fit, these outliers, how do they fit into your thinking of spirituality?
Well, I do talk about that in Red Flags
Mm,
and Toxic Spirituality because I think most people are good and doing the best they can with where they're at. That's human nature, but where we're at can still be harmful. So there can be a lot of unintentioned harm that's still harmful, but there is a small percentage of the population that's actually dangerous or manipulative
mm,
personality types, and
mm,
spiritual communities are not immune to that.
mm,
And so that is, I do talk about that in one of the chapters too, of it's important to be able to recognize the characteristics of when you might be dealing with someone
mm,
with these kind of levels of emotional immaturity, lack of
mm,
ability to self-regulate, lack
mm,
of ability to reflect,
mm,
whether that's high degrees of emotional immaturity or if we're getting into personality pathology.
mm,
The main piece is if people are not taking steps to actively manage those traits or do
mm,
better and keep them in check from their behavior,
mm.
they can cause a lot of serious trauma to people really close to them. And
Absolutely.
so it should be almost like basic education of here's what to look for, because not just spirituality, but if you marry someone like this, get into business with them, work for them, they
Yeah.
can make your life hell on earth.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But equally, they can initially make everything look like first love. These are
Mhm.
master manipulators. And
Yeah.
there is, if you look at how you fall in love with someone, that
Mhm.
and you meeting a narcissist or someone who's a master manipulator, it's very
Mhm.
similar because initially you get so much gaslighting and so much bullshit, but you feel
Yeah.
good because he's pressing all your right buttons only
Yeah.
then later, within a short period of time, to show his true colors. But
Yeah.
then it makes it so hard for you to understand that.
When the
That
mask starts to slip off and people going to help in spiritual communities, I find that there can be extra levels of projected trust or feeling like, okay, if this person has this following, if
mm,
I'm really vulnerable, if they have these spiritual
mm,
gifts, like they should be more evolved, or it means like they're here for the right reasons. And
mm,
and I've seen some people do, like I've run into these people personally sometimes where they'll weaponize spiritual principles of like, oh, like forgiveness and this
ah,
and that, but they don't hold themselves accountable at all. Or they're
exactly.
doing these really shady things by it.
And I think this is pretty clear when it comes to the extreme versions. If you were to look at really cults, for example, where people give up absolutely everything of themselves
Yeah,
and give away all their money and work 16 hours a day for
yeah,
free for the master or the mistress,
yeah.
whatever the head honcho is called. That's probably quite an easy example, but therefore I wanted to touch upon the extreme first. But in
Yeah,
reality, for so many of us, we are not in a cult. But
yeah.
yet, many of us have experienced toxic spirituality on a
Mhm.
lesser level, but not necessarily
Yeah,
less destructive. Can you give us some
for sure.
examples?
Well, I mean, I've worked with people with the aftermath of it as well.
Mm,
So sometimes it's well-known yoga teachers in the community. It could be someone with an actual professional license, like a doctor or chiropractor or massage therapist or potentially even therapist. Like
mm,
regulated professions are not immune to this. There's just more checks and balances in place.
mm,
There's more places people can go to see like what's the code of conduct here? Where do I lodge a complaint?
sure.
When we're getting into unregulated professions, people need to be more equipped with knowledge of what to look for and what to
Mm,
look out for because there isn't that same regulatory process or
mm,
code of conduct that people are held accountable to. So I think there's it happens so much more regularly than people may realize because
Mm,
many times people don't talk about it. They can feel ashamed or guilty, or they can even
mm,
question, like, was
mm,
this I mean, I've had clients come and process things where like, was that okay or not? Or I felt weird. I'm like, well,
mm,
basically, based on what you just told me, like without them getting consent, them touching you in this way in a spiritual process, like
yeah,
you got sexually assaulted. It's up
mm,
to you if you want to do something about this or not. Or
true.
this coach like guilting you using fear and guilt and manipulation and talking about how they can't afford to move now, or like now are they're exploiting you for money, basically. Like this is what is
Right.
happening here.
And
And
indeed,
it's up to you what you want to do about that. But
mm,
yeah.
and it,
And then I think it can get into territory where there can be kind of human cognitive bias where people know a little bit about a topic, they're really excited about something, but they just don't know enough. And with mental health and spirituality, it is a concerning trend where double-edged sword. I totally understand that for social media, all this information can be really helpful for people, but there can be a downside of people might think they know more than they don't know. And I've seen some people start pivoting into mental health online where it's very concerning because I don't see anything in their profile that says they have any training or ability, or they're like, oh, these spiritual practices help cure my depression. So now I'm going to start like treating people with depression. And that's dangerous.
100% agreed. And
Yeah.
again, let's give them the benefit of the doubt because obviously
Hmm.
they have struggled and have had difficulties finding solutions. And then they've
Yeah.
learned more and more and more and more about the
Hmm.
topic. And they then
Yeah.
decide to become a health coach. And
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that is a very honorable kind of path because
For
it
sure.
shows that they are taking the power back. They're no longer the victim. They're taking action, taking power. Often there's a huge post-traumatic growth in
Yeah.
their own journey, and they're now
Yeah.
going out there and coach others and say, "Hey, this is what works."
Hmm.
Or you're right. We should say this is what has worked with me. But
Yeah.
also, a good coach knows where his boundaries are,
Yeah, and
and
what training they have, the limits of
exactly,
competency. I'm not anti-coaching. I think there's some fantastic coaches out there. I've invested in coaching. I there's times and places for it, but what concerns me more is people not knowing the scope of practice or
indeed,
limitations of like this
indeed,
retreat or this thing, and it's for everyone. There's nothing that's for everyone.
Hmm,
There's stuff that can be helpful for certain people
I love that.
and won't be the right fit for others and could be actually potentially harmful for others.
That's very true. I love it the way you say that. And that's the individualization of any path that we take. It is very, very important what you just said. Yet you are describing the hard path. We humans
Hmm.
want the easy path. We always want the two pills. We always
Hmm.
want it right now. We want it yesterday.
Hmm.
Don't want to take accountability for anything we have done. We have lived a shit life where we did not look after our bodies, after our mind, after our spirituality for the last 50 years. But now, please give me that injection. And then I'm going to be slim and I'm going to be happy and the depression is gone. I sleep better and I make love like a wildebeest.
Hmm.
Yeah, about that. Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's hard because the only thing that this coach does, he wants to help, and there are more than enough willing people out there who don't want to take accountable or responsibility for their actions and just want the quick fix.
Yeah, and that can be part of it, but I think
Mm,
some of it too can be mental health is a really intense field.
mm,
I've been in it for 2 decades. I have a very specific niche. There's so
yeah,
many things I refer out, and what concerns me when people don't have the actual training in it is do they have the networks? Are they referring appropriately? If
yeah,
anybody's working with intense depression, like you need someone who can safety plan and be checking for
mm,
risk in that.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not trying to demonize anyone in this. It's more for people who are stepping into it to see like
mm,
have you even if you're helping, have you considered all these factors so that you're
mm,
doing this in a safe way and that you're
beautiful.
not getting into something you don't realize you're stepping into.
Mm,
And because I think with the rise of mental health awareness, society in a societal level, it's a really great thing. I'm not saying it should only be policed by like the Western system, but it there also should be some standards and processes. Like
absolutely,
there should be some more intensive training and supervision and just to make sure everybody's safe and covered.
absolutely. Mm,
Yeah.
I love
And
that. and
Yeah.
communication, because of
Mhm.
those people who really believe in themselves as having found the path, they do not communicate with the GP. They do not
Mhm.
communicate with the psychiatrist and say, hey, this is
Yeah.
what I'm doing here right now. What are your thoughts? What are your concerns about that? There is not that kind of teamwork
Yeah.
with the accredited, or not
It's
accreditation or not.
happening here and there, but I think it is hard. And I think
Mm,
that's why like the Western model also needs to keep evolving to
mm,
have better places to understand spirituality and
absolutely.
non-ordinary states of consciousness, because a lot of it can get I know a lot of professionals. I know a lot who they don't specialize in it, but they're open. They don't necessarily demonize or pathologize. They just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
But I do also get like I was really grounded in, I was already on the path to register as a psychologist, had gone through grad school when I went through my own awakening, and I knew how quote unquote crazy some of the experiences I was having sounded.
And that's the hard thing, isn't it? It is
Yeah.
that is once you experience healing or energy in its rawest forms through whatever
Hmm.
modality, you can't
Hmm.
unsee it. You have
Yeah.
experienced X, Y, and Z, and you
Yeah.
think, what do I do with that now?
Yeah.
So
The
there is this
DSM
own,
doesn't have a lot of places to put like
well,
seeing and hearing things that other people don't see and hear.
exactly,
So,
exactly right. So I love it what you say. So coming back to the toxic spirituality. So on the one hand, we have got the cults, the extreme version. On the other hand, we have lesser extreme versions that might actually influence our life on a daily basis. And
mhm,
I think it is so important to actually just be aware of that. Be aware of that complex interaction of you seeking help out there and you believing that someone has the answer, knows it all, does all the right things, when that might not necessarily be true. So, how
mhm.
can we guard ourselves against that more common but less obvious toxic spirituality?
Yeah, and one piece, if you're okay, I want to add about the more common piece is there's also just kind of the influence of our capitalistic, like Western
Mm,
culture that's infused in a lot of these
of course.
things. A lot of most people have been to some kind of vision board workshop or manifestation workshop where it is so, if we really look at it, it's very ego centered, it's very capitalistic. A lot of it is around manifesting money
Mm.
and like write out things you want from like what your ego self wants and try to hijack these ancient traditions to get what you want. And that's not how it actually works. Like,
Come on, it's that law of what is it? The law of positivity, the positive thinking. And a lot of people made a lot of money out of these books and out of these
yeah. And
courses.
there is value in it. There's a time and place for gratitude, for visualization, for positivity. But if we take that and then become like demonize any human experience, negative emotion,
Yeah,
get so far into the toxic positivity
yeah.
as a culture
Ooh,
and like many spiritual spaces or well-meaning spiritual people can actually not be showing up as the best people, like not giving ourselves the best place to be in a human experience as a spiritual being, which means we're prone to trauma. We have this nervous system we have to work with. We have these universal emotions that we actually, it's not about not feeling bad things. Like it's about how do we not let those drive our behavior and move through them and make more aligned choices. But when people are going through hard times, like sometimes the spiritual communities can be not very helpful in terms of the toxic positivity too.
right. Give me an example there. Um,
Everything happens for a reason, or well, your soul signed up for this, so like you shouldn't be sad or well, careful. People can be so scared that they have any bad thought or negative emotion. They're scared they're going to manifest bad things.
right.
And it's not that simple.
Although, having said that, there is certainly, if you're not aware about your core beliefs and if you're not aware
Yeah,
about your attachment styles,
for sure.
then inevitably,
There's
subconsciously,
awareness. Yeah.
absolutely, you certainly do attract a
Yes.
certain negative opposite in a relationship, for example.
There's patterns for learning and growth, and
Uh,
there's a time and place for looking at what's my role in this, what am I learning, what are my
Absolutely.
patterns in this, but there's also a piece of It's not just being like, okay, I'm going to create this like delusional world in my mind and cling to this, and it's just going to make everything else fall into place.
That's true. And I love it because you can be very much responsible for which thoughts you nurture, which thoughts and emotions you let come through.
Hmm.
And this is a power that so many of us do not know that they have because we believe, oh, we're sad. Oh my God, I hate sad. I hate negative emotions. So there is the issue of actually learning that negative emotions are part of life and how
Hmm.
to live with them, how to experience them, actually recognize them for what they are, and
Yeah.
then accept them maybe as messengers of your
Hmm.
own body. Because so often, I mean, if you were to ask me, can you create some depression, please, or some anxiety? And then I say, no trouble. Let me just change your nutrition for the next week and
Hmm.
change a few of your lifestyles. I make you anxious. I make you
Hmm.
depressed. Give me a week and I've achieved that. So
Yeah.
there are very simple things that we can do. And I think it's so important that we understand that complex interaction. You are
Yeah.
responsible for much what is happening, the way
Hmm.
you look and treat and feel yourself.
Hmm.
Once you actually have that, once you take that control back and create habits that sustain you, you are such a different person there. So,
Hmm.
how much has that toxic spirituality got to do with the lack of a better word, weakness of the individual or lack of resilience of the individual, or however you want to call it? Those people who are still in the victim role or just trying to transition in the taking action role, they are clearly more susceptible to the toxic spirituality. Would you agree there, or is it actually
I
even
can,
down
but
the
there's
line?
also times where people who are really invested in their work can be more vulnerable to it too. Because when we talk about relationships with narcissists, I have specialized training in this. It's not codependent people, it's actually people high in super traits of personality where they're very trustworthy, they're very calm, they work through things, they
Oh,
are motivated to have good quality of relationships. They're not impulsive. Like they're really positive traits unless you
interesting.
have a manipulator going after you. Then they are a deficit. So it really depends. And I also I don't think it's like an individual weakness failing. I think we're really influenced by our culture and all these like messages around us. Like
True.
we're in a culture that we've been taught to have like quick fix. We're bombarded with advertisements all
Absolutely.
the time, like be busy, be productive, be achieving. And
Yeah.
when we're in our achieving mind all the time, we're actually more prone to anxiety, depression, and lack of meaning.
Mm,
Like we're not in a culture
mm,
that really values there's importance in having space to just be and
mm,
to do things that aren't able to monetize. It's not just about like what can you produce and make money off of, like actually meaning-based things that help our brain be more resilient are more spiritually connected, but they're not necessarily they're not about money for money's sake or
mm.
status.
I love that. No, it's very wise points there. And that is so important, the point you just made, because it can hit us, it can hit anyone in society. It is not just weak. And I hate the word weak, and I hate the word failure. Just don't know. I mean, you talk about codependency, which is part of that pattern. But yeah, we are sometimes not showing up for ourselves, and we are not the best version of ourselves,
Mhm.
regardless what kind of ultimate traits we have got. And I think
Mhm.
let's be aware that not every message that we are receiving is sent by the universe, God, the angels, whoever, is of positive nature, even if it looks like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's for us to get used to putting checks and balances in place with regards to what we are taking in and what we believe. I think that
Mhm.
is a key thing. And
Mhm.
come to the doctor's point of view. I mean, we had in the 90s, 92, we had the food pyramid being restyled, and everyone said, see, this is beautiful. Eat as many grains as you can, and it's all healthy and it's beautiful. And now we see the flow-on effect of a obesity epidemic and all those kind of things. Yet, when this food pyramid was created, all the nutritionists and everyone out there jumped onto it and said, "Yeah, that is it. That is the answer." Because we, well, that information that was given to us then
Mhm.
was, yeah, sounded good and it made sense. In reality, we know nowadays know that there was quite a bit of skullduggery going on, that there
Mhm.
was quite a bit of misinformation going on. Nowadays, we've got a far better understanding of nutrition. But all for
Yeah,
the last, what, 20 years, at least, people strongly believed that they were actually doing something really, really good.
for
So,
sure.
so it's sometimes so hard to distinguish a negative outcome if this was on purpose or if that was on purpose by one or two people who got very rich out of it and then others just followed the truth. So we followed the line, shall I say. That's really, really hard. There's so many factors coming into it to actually talk about a particular example.
Yeah. And
If
what I
that is,
really like about when we can develop our connection with our intuition, I think
ah,
we move into more of discernment versus judgment. It's not
mm,
so much about like, is this right or wrong? Is someone intentionally lying or not? It's just more of
mm,
like, is this for me or not?
exactly. I love that. And intuition, that's again such a buzzword. Um, it is, what is it? I mean, I play now devil's advocate. Intuition,
Mhm.
bullshit. We have no evidence for it. There is nothing there. That is, I think you're talking rubbish.
Yeah.
What would you say to such a skeptic?
I was like, I didn't believe in it before. Also, I was science based. I thought intuition, spirituality was like, it was too woo for me. I was like, maybe it's a placebo effect. If people believe in it, like, that's a significant effect. Like, it's a big deal. So, it's the power of belief. But
Yeah.
there is more and more research for it. I also think I would never advise anyone to just be like, oh, you think this was an intuitive thing. You haven't really worked with this and built trust in it, and you're not clear in your own ability to discern like what is pure intuitive information that's helpful for you. What steps do you take? Like, don't have a dream and then quit your like a dream one night, wake up and leave your family and quit your job the next day without thinking anything through. Like, don't make major life decisions based on it until you
Mm,
actually have a track record of long, like clear history with it. Trust is earned. It's not just, you shouldn't just be giving
mm,
it freely to anything in your life. So I do think it is basically on that spiritual connection because I'm more science based first, and I was very skeptical. And when I started to have spiritual awakening experiences, I was also searching for the science to say like what could explain this or like what could help me ground into this. And I did get enough feedback from people I didn't know or wouldn't have had the information to validate a lot of the information I was getting. So I was
mm.
like, this has to come from somewhere. Like, there's no way my rational mind would have known this.
I like that. Oh, I like that
Yeah.
a lot. And
And the
indeed,
quantum
sorry.
physics research really helped as well, helped me make sense of it. Because if the nature of reality from what we can tell in science so far is just one quantum energetic field and there's no clear end or separation, maybe it's like dogs have this crazy sense of smell, bats have sonar. Maybe humans actually do have this innate sensory ability to pick up on some of that, to feel
Oh,
like to get some sensory information from the nature of reality.
we have, we have,
We
and
do.
and
And there's neuroscience that supports that. Yeah.
absolutely. And ultimately, if we were to look at the nonverbal communication, the
Mhm.
little micro expression that you see on the face, that you
Mhm.
have got certain behaviors and certain just little mannerisms, etc., that give away so much. I mean, 95% of communication is nonverbal, if we look at it
Mhm.
from that angle. And we have
Mhm.
evolved. We didn't just come on this earth yesterday. We have
Yeah.
evolved over tens, hundreds of thousands of years. So we have learned that this is a dangerous world. So therefore,
Mhm.
all the thoughts that we have got, 60, 80,000 thoughts, are
Mhm.
negative.
Mhm.
So not all of them, sorry, 80% of them are negative, the
Yeah.
majority. So we are looking out for danger. And we are not just looking out as in, oh, where is danger with our conscious mind? Subconsciously, we are looking for
Mhm.
something that is out of place.
Mhm.
And I look at intuition as exactly that power of our
Mhm.
body to pick up things that are not right. And
Yeah.
some of us are really good in it.
Yeah.
These are the naturals. They are rare, 1 to 2%, I think, from the population who
Mhm.
get it really 80, 90% right, that they see someone and absolutely know, okay, there is something, he's lying or he is that,
Yeah.
because they can read virtually every micro expression of that
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
So if we just say that intuition, in this particular example, is a very good ability to read the nonverbal expressions of a person, then suddenly this intuition actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
therefore, if we just take that example, then the skeptic might have to say, okay, well, actually, yes, I give you that.
Yeah.
And that is something that we know, but there are many more things out there.
For sure. Yeah.
Where did you see examples of intuition that you've experienced in your life where you thought, that's interesting?
Yeah, so for me, it's really evolved over time, like over the last few decades. I wasn't one of the people who initially was really strong in it, and I do think it's an ability we can all work with if we want to
Mm,
practice and put in the time and energy. It can get better,
mm,
but like I'm not really talented in languages. I could put a lot of time and effort into that, and I'll be barely passing anything. And so it's like some people will have a larger range on how far they can take it, but you
sure.
can still keep getting better and better. Um, for me, the curiosity sparked for me when I did like had some really strong feelings about a person and like about what was happening in a situation that made
Yeah.
zero logical sense. And even my friends were like, "Are you okay? Like you sound really paranoid." And I was like, "I know I do. But I think this is happening." And
Excellent.
I sounded like quote unquote like paranoid, crazy, jealous, like out of nowhere, but everything that was coming through so intensely actually ended up being true. And so
Aha.
it's again, it's not a baseline of like, this is how I feel normally, or this is a pattern for me. It was like, this is weird. And like, it is alarm bells are going off. And then later it was backed up to say like, this was actually what was happening. I wasn't crazy. It was actually going on. And
Excellent.
so that started me like reading more about intuition or being more
Mm,
curious about
mm,
it.
mm,
And then I ended up spending about a year, close to a year in India and Nepal, and got a lot more into like meditation, breathwork practices, and a lot more space to be able to thinking mind busy,
mm,
busy, busy. Where my sense around like that energy, physical
mm,
sensation, intuitive sensation I started being a lot more connected to my body and more aware of these subtle energies. And
mm,
it wasn't long after that I realized my that I was empathic, so I can feel I can feel the energy in places. I could feel other people's emotions or physical sensations, and my body experience would shift very quickly and dramatically
mm,
depending on who I was close to or
mm,
around or kind of working with intuitively. So I'd always recommend people work with their dominant, figure out what your dominant ability is first, and like the more you work with that, the others open up over
mm,
time. But
mm,
now uh, now
mm,
I get information like it is I live in both worlds kind of most of the time. I can get into that really easily or get intuitive information very quickly, and that may be working with clients, I'll see, hear, like get visuals of stuff from like childhood scenes, ancestral things, like something someone said, or like a different, like reading different people's energy who
mm,
are close. It's like this is the sense of the dynamic.
mm,
I teach people to help connect with their own intuition because I think that's more valuable than
mm,
someone, like I don't want to ever replace that for someone else. I think
mm,
we have our own compass and people can help us like connect with that ourselves to be like, does this resonate? Is it landing? Like,
mm,
and it is a subtle language. It's a often going within language to be like, what is the subtle sensory information? What's different about the quality of this? Is there
mm,
like goosebumps going on? Is
mm,
there this like just quiet knowing? Like if there's
mm.
danger, it often screams at us, but other times it's softer and it like will be quieter unless it needs to get louder. Like I think it is
Interesting.
that loving source or like our soul kind of communicating with us.
I love that. I love that. And you're spelling something out that is very, very powerful and very
Mhm.
beautiful. And I will come in a moment. We will talk about the different versions of intuition, the different styles, or what predominant, kind of like a love language, but now
Mhm.
focusing on intuition. But I want to ask you, where, like, for example, in my case, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. I had a lot of trauma in my life. There's probably a lot of generational trauma that has been handed down. I did a past life regression. I don't think that many of my past lives were very pretty.
Mhm.
So I've got probably quite a heavy load there. In turn, one of my strongest behavioral patterns is fear avoidance. So
Mhm.
fear avoidance feeds me a
Mhm.
quiet, constant language.
Mhm.
And when I say quiet, so often it screams, but it,
Mhm.
it catastrophizes. How can you
Mhm.
distinguish intuition from, for example, catastrophizing based upon the trauma that I've had?
Intuition isn't fearful. So intuition, pure intuition is never scared. It's just knowing. Our ego or
Nice.
our rational self doesn't always like it. Like then it can be like, ah, I don't know. But, and also high emotional intensity or stuff that's triggering past trauma, fear responses, it's almost like static on the radio where it's almost impossible to pick up the intuitive signal then.
Nice.
Sometimes we do need to work with trauma processing tools, ways to work with that part that is trying to protect us and keep us safe
Nice.
and work to calm that energy down enough that we can hear it more clearly. So I wouldn't
Beautiful.
recommend that people start working with intuition with like really high stakes emotional things. Like do
Mm,
it with stuff you have pretty much zero emotional attachment to. It's much
perfect.
easier to check in with that and be like, was this accurate or not?
Yep. No, I like that. I like that a lot. That's a beautiful distinction that you've just made. Very powerful. And intuition, so that is something that you know. And the moment I say no, it's already wrong because there are also intuitions where you feel. So there are
Yeah,
different types of intuitions. Talk
yeah,
us through
yeah,
those types of intuitions.
for sure. And if you're okay, before I move on to that, I'd also say for people of like, intuition sometimes is giving us guidance that's helpful and it's kind of this pure clear like this is the kind we want where we're like loving messenger, I feel better, thank you,
Mm,
that settled in. Sometimes it'll let us know like there's something here to pay attention to.
yeah, yeah.
And that might be old trauma or other things where
Mm,
it's like okay, there's something here that we need to attend to or do some work with before we're getting a clean answer.
mm,
Like this is
mm.
also part of our healing journey.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let's put the trauma to the side, and because
Mhm.
my show has been so much about trauma in the
Yeah,
past
yeah, yeah,
that there is so much. Yeah, guys, look into the other beautiful guests I've had where we went to depth into trauma. But let's
yeah.
talk about this intuition, that
Mhm.
magic force, so to speak. And
Yeah,
I don't want to lose you guys when I say magic. I
yeah,
just want to say this force that is often so unrecognized when it's there, so surprising when it is there, and
yeah.
sometimes a bit scary because you don't know, can you
Yeah,
trust it or not?
yeah. When I think to just even ground people in the conversation, because when I talk to people about this and when I was first going around it, it just feels like this like weird thing to talk about that's like so stigmatized. And when I was researching for my book, I was really interested to come across some of the research for like scientists, academic researchers, like a significant amount of people, like very logical, grounded,
Mm,
research-based people have had profound spiritual experiences that shape the course of their work and their research, but they often don't talk to it about it with anyone or very few people.
mm, mm,
There's also a US Gallup poll that found they asked one question in the poll that said, have you ever had a profound spiritual or religious experience that changed the course of your life?
oh,
So, major impact, like scale 1 to 5, with 5 being like 100% changed the course of my life. 41% of the population rated it a 5.
wow,
These are not small numbers. So,
wow, okay,
when you speak about it more publicly and more grounded in the ways I've gotten comfortable doing over the years, people will come and talk side by side. And like so many people actually have had some kind of spiritual experience. They're
mm.
actually really common. But it is also found in the research that has been done for something that is so common, it's so not talked about. And and it's stigmatized. And I think that is
Absolutely.
part of the like dark side or the legacy of like Western psychology,
Mm,
pathologizing a lot of these things
mm,
that were understood in other cultures and still
mm,
are understood in normal parts of other cultures.
mm,
That there is this fear of being too woo-woo, not credible,
mm,
Are people going to think I'm crazy or like part of the tinfoil hat club? And
mm.
am I going to lose
Absolutely.
credibility?
Absolutely. And we see
Yeah.
that again and again out there. And but then I think that is life. That
Yeah.
is, we need to accept that as much as we accept the weather. That in the past,
Mhm.
people did, um, again, probably out of good reasons,
Mhm.
tried to protect their
Mhm.
clients, their patients. And when
Mhm.
we say Western medicine, there's
Mhm.
very clearly this kind of duty of the doctor and
Yeah. Yeah.
of certain institutions like medical councils
Sure.
to
Yeah.
actually protect their patients
Yeah.
from extremes. And that might
Mhm.
be new technology, that someone tries some operation that is a disaster, or a new drug, or in this case, spirituality.
Mhm.
People demand 15,000 randomized controlled trials before they finally actually come to it. Yet, understanding that in nowadays such complex world, it's really, really hard to
Mhm.
design and fund a trial that can, for example, shed more light on spirituality or
Mhm.
intuition, etc. This is not easy, and
For
it
sure.
is bloody expensive. So
Yeah.
therefore, let's actually give those people credit who try to do their best, medical
For sure.
councils. So again, everyone is trying to do their best, but I think we have
Mhm.
got a responsibility and duty as individuals to
Mhm.
explore our own ecosystem in there.
Yeah.
We have got, and it's a choice and it's a privilege, I believe. It's not a
Yeah.
duty. Yes, it is a duty, because we cannot show our best if we don't actually explore
Yeah.
all the nooks and crannies of us. And for
Mhm.
all you know, you might be a person who has got a very strong intuition,
Mhm.
nearly something that might be paranormal.
Mhm.
Are there examples of people, if we now go to the supernatural, if we now go to
Mhm.
the paranormal,
Yeah.
however you want to phrase it, have you
Mhm.
met people, or are you a
I am
person?
one. Like I've worked with transpersonal psychology too, because I was having those experience. I was
Hmm,
having like deceased people come through
right.
or like information come through even in my own family stuff that I would then talk to people who are still alive was like, did this happen or is this and like break down in tears confirming stuff and I was like, I
Yeah.
had no idea. Like this was never talked about. This
Yeah.
was like did not know about this in history or even further back like some historical things where I was like, this was never talked about or part of the story, but there's some details here that could be confirmed.
Hmm,
So I've had enough of that stuff come through, and then I've had enough of that come through with like practice before actual
hmm,
client sessions. Now, with over a decade of doing this work professionally,
hmm,
that kind of stuff gets validated all the time. And
hmm.
that's why I'm like, I don't think intuition is just like our brain getting better at pulling up information we already know. Like
Right.
intuition sometimes pulls in things like we have no logical base for,
Absolutely.
but there has
Absolutely.
to be enough like that track record of validation of that or evidence around it and it should still be held pretty lightly. I don't think someone should take that over as someone else's truth
Hmm. I love
because
that.
it is metaphoric, it's symbolic, we don't always know
Hmm.
100% with it.
I love that. And those of you who are thinking, oh, she's talking bullshit, how often have you guys been standing on the traffic lights in your car on
Mhm.
red, and suddenly you know exactly that two cars behind you on the left, someone is looking at you, and you turn
Mhm.
around and bang. Or you're
Mhm.
driving by someone and you're in a long line of traffic. You are looking at this person. Within a fraction of a second, this person is looking at you. How does that
Yeah.
work?
And
There is,
one times people have lots of experience with but don't talk about a lot is someone really close to you dies and you have a dream or a knowing or a sense like their smell suddenly, a sign from them. I hear this from people all the time, but generally don't. It might be just a one-off.
mm,
It's common. And also for the people who say bullshit, I'm like, I totally get that. I said bullshit too. And I'm not trying to convince anyone because if someone would have just told me and I hadn't had my own experiences, I would still think, maybe could be just bullshit or placebo effect.
mm.
Don't know. I'll
Yeah,
probably never know. Like I get that also. Yeah.
that's true. But as with every piece of information,
Mhm.
It's your choice how to respond to that. It's your choice how
Mhm.
to respond to a wave of neurochemicals that you call emotions. It's your
Mhm.
choice how to respond to a new trauma. We have good
Mhm.
choices. So only because the intuition delivers you a piece of information, you may not
Mhm.
choose to actually act upon that or keep it closer to your heart. And there might
Yeah.
be good reasons for that. So again, let's do not forget that even if you are born with a stronger sense that picks up things that others maybe don't, does not
Mhm.
necessarily mean to say that is something negative. And you
Mhm.
indeed you call it intuition is your
Mhm.
superpower, should you
Mhm.
choose to accept it as that,
Mhm.
isn't it? Tell
Yeah.
me, why is it a superpower?
Well, I do think it is almost the way that this larger field, source, universe, God, our higher self communicates with us. It's
Yeah.
it's like our own little GPS or compass system, except it doesn't work like the rational mind likes it to work. It's we don't get all the coordinates, and this is the entire route in advance, so we can see it all coming, but we get a sense of like it'll guide us of like this is the right next step at the right time. And who doesn't want that? Because we are taught there is a piece of like what can we control and doing what we can to control what we can.
Yeah.
And then there's so much uncertainty in the world and the universe. And if all our ability to feel safe is on things outside of us, like the security of the job, the security of politics, the security of this, we can live in a state of chronic anxiety or
Mm,
like be thrown into chaos very quickly. If we can have this center point of how to come back to this like part of us that will guide us personally of like what we need to know when we need to know it, and that we will be okay and we can develop a foundation of trust in that,
yeah.
my anxiety from before awakening and like the things I would obsess over versus like what I can do now to come back to that center, it's like I feel like the world around me feels kind of quote unquote wilder, but I feel a lot more calmer knowing
Mm,
I
mm.
can come back to a place of like being okay even when things are really chaotic or even when life is really hard.
And I think there's a lot of learning involved in that. I love what you say, yes, as if someone suddenly regains one of their senses. Maybe someone who has been deaf and suddenly gets a hearing implant, and suddenly there's
Mhm.
this whole new world of information out there that they had not seen prior or heard prior in this case. It
Yeah.
can be so overwhelming. It can be a huge gift. It can be a huge burden. And I think that's the same with intuition or any kind of other paranormal, supernatural kind of ability you develop and learn. And I love this, the way that you say we can all strengthen these things and we
Yeah.
can become better in them. And I think that is, again, a choice that we have. I
Mhm.
think we all have got these abilities that are dormant
Mhm.
and we can strengthen them. We can work on them. How much time you want to involve in that, that is up to you. We live such
Mhm.
busy lives. Most of us don't even recognize the subtle signs that intuition is actually trying to give us. And we only
Mhm.
see the big ones. But here you
Yeah.
are, the Gallup poll I was not aware of, the 41%
Mhm.
who actually have had a spiritual experience that was life-changing. Wow.
Yeah.
That is, so it is far more common out there than we
Yeah.
admit to ourselves.
Or
Wow.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah, true, 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 true.
Yeah.
But, and you have got on your website, you have got a test where you
Yeah,
can actually explore your own intuition, so to speak, what style of
for sure.
intuition you have got.
Yeah.
Talk us through these styles and what they really mean.
Yeah, so for when we want to actively work with it, when we can figure out what our dominant sensory gateway is like meditate on that. Use those low stake things to see like what's my feeling,
Mm,
visual impressions, any like self-talk messages, but like tailor it to like what way you already get intuitive information.
yeah.
So people can take the test, they could reflect on times before, keep a journal, and also be like, whether this was real or not over time. But the primary ones tend to be that empathic ability. So just like feeling other people's emotions or physical
Mm,
sensations, like processing energy in your own body like it's yours.
mm,
But it's a subtle, it's a going within, and there is a sense of like asking yourself, is this mine, not mine, mine and not mine? If you suddenly
nice.
change around different people, that can be a sign. For others, it could be visual. That's not always as dramatic as like the movies of like seeing a ghost. It's all like standing there like other people.
Yeah.
It can be a billboard message just like grabbing your attention while you're driving
Yeah.
or repeating numbers. It could be something that seems like imagination in your mind's eye,
Yeah.
but lines up with something later that you wouldn't have known. Auditory, again, it might be overhearing a snippet of conversation, something on the radio. It has a different quality to the sensory information. It's almost like time slows down. You're really aware of it. You might get, some people get goosebumps
Mm.
or like a deja vu feeling along with it.
You took the words out of my mouth. I was about to say, is déjà vu actually
Yeah.
something that fits into that abstract kind of model that you have created here?
For some people it can. There's deja vu. There's also like the synchronicities that Carl Jung talks about of like sometimes we have these divine coincidence things where you're like,
Yeah.
I just thought of that person I haven't forever, ran into someone, they mentioned them, and then they emailed me all like so quickly. Like, what the heck are the
I
chances
know.
of that?
I know. That it
Yeah.
happened to me this Sunday. This I thought I
Yeah.
need to get in touch with a friend, and so I WhatsApped this friend. Within 3 minutes, my another friend contacted me and said, "Look, we should. Why don't we go to this particular friend? Why don't we just pop in and say hello, have a coffee?"
Yeah.
Completely out of the blue, but within 3 minutes. You
Yeah.
know. So
I'm a
how the
rule of
hell?
threes. I'm like three in a short time. I'm like, I'm gonna see what this is about. Like I
Yeah.
don't, need to get further ahead, but just what's going on here.
Yeah.
Those ones I find are harder to control. They kind of just happen to us
Yeah.
versus with these sensory gateways, we can actually intentionally work with them a lot more easily. So we can't
Interesting.
kind of will up a synchronicity to happen. We
Hmm.
can, if we record them, if we're more open to them, we might
Yeah.
notice them more,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And it's so beautiful because if you again think, well, a heap of bullshit, how the hell can you train something like that? You can. Think of it
Mhm.
other way around. When you look at elite soldiers, at sort of tier one warriors, then they live in a life of fear immersion. They
Mhm.
basically do things the whole day long that scares the living daylights out of them.
Mhm.
But they are so used to it, the fear is getting smaller, smaller, smaller. Fear
Mhm.
inoculation, it's
Yeah.
the term for it. Now, if we say that this works to create the super warrior, well, hang
Mhm.
on. So if I now immerse myself a little bit more in a calm, um, Zen-like, or however you call it, serenity kind of state, and just listen a bit more inside and
Mhm.
see what comes through. Might that not be an ability for us to strengthen those kind of intuitions?
Yeah.
And I think that is so powerful. And until you actually, well, until I looked through the questions on your website, I did not distinguish that there might be different ways of intuition and that you can
Mhm.
actually group them with your senses. Because
Yeah.
all the questions, there are 9 questions on your questionnaire, and it turns out that most of the time, I know
Yeah. Yeah.
I I know that there is something happening. I can't tell you why, I can't tell you how,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I know. Whilst there seems to be other people who have got the more the visual aspect, they see
Mhm.
it, others hear it. So the 5 senses seem to
Yeah.
be certainly there. And here we are, we're calling intuition the sixth sense, isn't it? So how do we? How, is it the fifth sense or sixth sense? Now I'm getting confused. Um,
Well, it's like, yeah, people call it the sixth sense. I think it's often through those sensory gateways, but it
yeah,
has a different quality to it. Like it's
right.
not quite the same as just seeing like your regular visual sense. It feels different. And that's why we need to like meditation can really help us open that up because we
Yeah,
need to be aware of those subtle shifts in our feeling and in our experience
beautiful.
internally as well.
Beautiful. I love that.
Mhm.
My goodness. So we've talked so much, and what a beautiful ride that was, from starting from toxic spirituality to the power of intuition. If you were now with that beautiful knowledge that has armed you later in life, if you were to go back to a younger version of yourself,
Mhm.
what would you tell that younger version? What is sort of the key message to that younger version?
Yeah, I mean, I think the younger version, and this is a lot of like work I do now as well, and I see this happening with parents too, is helping younger people like understand some of these intuitive gifts
Hmm.
and validating that their intuition is real.
Hmm.
Like if so like they might be picking up on emotions, it's not giving them adult information, but it may just be like, yeah, mom and dad are stressed. It's a tough day at work, but we're okay. Like, you go play, don't worry about us. Like, that can go a long way. So helping protect children's like innate knowing of what when they are reading things correctly.
Ooh. Nice. Because
Yeah.
if we look at ACE questionnaire, so adverse childhood experiences,
Yeah.
living in you don't have to be sexually trafficked and abused
Mm.
to have a really harsh impact on the way you
Hmm.
later behave. So
Yeah.
those kind of things, like I was probably not the best dad because I was away, and then when I came home, my wife and I were out.
Hmm.
So here you are. Mm.
Hmm.
And I've never thought about them picking that up on a
Hmm.
subconscious level and us saying, "Hey, it's okay." I think later on I did it a few times, but this was certainly not something I was ever aware of. See what a
Yeah.
beautiful little nugget of information you've just given me there.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, just about 20 years too late, but I'm still grateful for the nugget of
Yeah.
information because
Never too
uh,
late, right? We do the best we can with where we're
well,
at. Yeah.
exactly right. And that's so beautiful. So let's stop that crazy race that crazy roller coaster that we have decided. We constantly push the speed of the roller coaster forward, faster, faster, more, when really the rest and rejuvenation and us calming down holds so much promise in manifesting the
Mhm.
spirituality that we so seek,
Mhm.
also help us to calm down the effects of stress and of chaos on our body.
Mhm.
Our bodies are chronically sick due to the lifestyle that we're living, the metabolic chaos, all that. And our body has the ability to clean itself up, but we
Mhm.
just don't give it a chance. So here we are. So this is such a powerful insight today. And I'm actually very, very, very grateful to you that you came as a guest on my show. You clearly changed the way I think about intuition. You clearly changed the way that I look at things. I accept them after our talk now in a different way. The sheer fact that I've done a past life regression, the sheer fact that I have done many, many other things. I've experienced healing, I've experienced energy, which you can't explain.
Mhm.
So, and I guess I just left it at that. Okay, I've experienced that. It doesn't scare me anymore. And maybe it has made my life easier, but I haven't developed it. I haven't worked on it. I haven't strengthened it maybe in any way. And now today I'm sort of asking myself quietly the question, what next steps can I take to actually explore my intuition more? And
Mhm.
for me, I've forgotten the word. This is someone who knows. You call them a specific empath. Um,
Maybe the claircognizant or the
that's the word.
yeah.
Claircognizant. Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I strengthen that particular ability?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a piece, it can help to journal and reflect on that. You will get a 6 week, if you did the quiz and like provided your email, you'll get a 6 week deep in your intuition challenge that's free. So you'll get some resources and things there and
Right,
some
right.
pieces in the book for free. All of it's free. So it's really about taking that space in the day to connect with your knowing and even just reflecting back and journaling on times when you did know and that turned out to be correct. The more sometimes initially when we're connecting with our intuition, we start realizing that where it's actually already there quite strongly, but we
Mm.
just thought everybody else had that or we dismissed it. It's like, no, I just
Ah,
knew or I had a sense. Doesn't everyone? And
perfect.
when we start connecting with it more, we're like, oh, actually, no, not everyone does know this. Not everyone has puts it together this way. Like this is actually that intuition.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Um, and then
Now,
play with it lightly. Just be like, okay, like, how do I think this is going to go? What's my knowing say about this? For
ah,
something low stakes, make a note. Be like, how does
oh,
that
that's
show up in my body? Yeah.
now, guys, did you hear what she just said? Play with it.
Hmm.
Play. This is not something that comes out when you force it. This is not,
Hmm.
I want to now be clairvoyant. I want to be now. It doesn't work like that. You have to play with it because you have to get out of that fight and flight mode. You have to rest, rejuvenate, vagal breathing, learn some breath work if you have never learned anything, and do learn how to sit still with yourself, just
Hmm.
like that. You don't call it big words like meditation and you have
Yeah.
to sit in a funny lotus position. No, 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 no. Just sit
Mhm.
still with yourself. Learn that.
No, or be
They,
busy, but in the present moment. Like be
yeah,
walking, but paying
yeah,
attention to the present.
absolutely. Hey, in the
Yeah.
shower, I find
Yeah.
the warm shower so
Hmm.
interesting. And sometimes you lose yourself in the shower and you
Hmm.
think, bloody hell, I've been 10 minutes in the shower. I can't remember what happened in those 10 minutes. That is a beautiful thing because you have allowed yourself to be in that state of meditation or whatever state, however you want to call it,
Yeah.
whatever fits with your belief system. We all have got this possibility, the power of doing so.
For
And
sure.
let's actually strengthen that. And you might be
Yeah. And because
amazed.
it is this, it's this relationship between you and a spiritual power, whatever you
Yeah,
define that as,
yeah.
like treat it like that. Ask good questions, ask open-ended
Isn't it?
questions, ask
Isn't it?
specific things. Like, don't be like, tell me, how do I make this happen? But be like,
Yeah,
what do I need to know about this?
yeah,
Please show me guidance. Like,
yeah.
ask open-ended questions and just be open to how those answers may come through over
Exactly.
time. They may not come exactly in that moment, but be
Uh-huh.
open to the themes that come through.
But sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. After
Well,
I
they
started,
can.
yeah, after I did my past life regression, that was the first time that I accepted that there's truly a bigger power out there that I had so far denied because I never believed in Jesus Christ or church or God. Therefore, I automatically said, "No, there's nothing bigger out there."
Hmm.
And then once I had this experience, then I sort of gave in to a certain degree and said, okay, there is something bigger out there. And since then, I have made a point of trying every day to talk to those powers that are out there. For the lack of a better word, I call them angels. And
Hmm.
I am like you, I'm asking them specifically for guidance, not
Hmm.
specifically, I want to make $100,000 or I want to make
Yeah. Yeah.
that. But I say, look, I trust you guys and please help me today, give me guidance and get me through this maybe difficult situation or help me with to see the right path forward.
Hmm.
And it is amazing what happens when you actually are this open.
Yeah.
It's sometimes scary
Yeah.
because within 24 hours, a solution to a problem has arisen that you never saw coming. And you could say, well, that's coincidence. But then the next day, you do it again and something else manifests itself that you couldn't see coming that came out of the blue but clearly there is a force at work.
Yeah.
It's just impossible not to be, and where even if you were as a mathematician do the likelihoods of these things occurring in sequence
Yeah.
every day, you have to say
Yeah.
no way in hell. So guys, don't get afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't listen to the naysayers. I think
Yeah,
that's
be
the
skeptically
important thing.
optimistic and then get the results for yourself. Like,
Ooh, skeptically optimistic. Oh, that's a cool one. I like that. Okay, Katie, you're amazing. You're amazing. Where can people find you? Where can people who gel with you, they want to know more. Where can they find you? Where can they find your
at
book?
katieturnerpsychology.com is kind of my digital home. It's got information about me. There's a page about the book there. And I'm looking into moving into more courses, workshops, that kind of thing.
Nice. Nice. Oh, beautiful. Guys, look down there into the description of the YouTube video and of the podcast because you've got all of our links down there. Please, whilst you're down there, press the like and subscribe button because we want to get these beautiful messages out there. And the more we can plant these seeds into the lives of others, the more we get the snowball effect. We know that this snowball will turn into an avalanche, and that is a good avalanche. I want to be immersed into that power of of life improvement. That sounds corny, but it is. We are all trying to live the best lives possible, and sometimes we're struggling, and it's all too much, and we don't know how. But maybe the answer lies within. Maybe the answer you have known all the time along. It's your intuition. You just never listened to it. And I so wish that you guys come along on this journey because that is where the magic happens. Katie, you are amazing. Thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
Thank you so much.
No trouble at all. And you guys out there, look after yourself and live with intention.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up. turning around.